Hi, and thank you for joining our educational webinar on plant-based diets for better health with, with Mary-Jo Sawyer, a registered dietitian with VCU Health. My name is Sharnese Smith, and I am a member of VCU Health's marketing team. Before we begin the educational presentation, I would like to first make note that we will hold all questions until the end. Please feel free to drop any questions in the comments and we will address them at the end. Mary-Jo Sawyer serves as an outpatient dietitian at VCU Health, where she provides individual nutrition counseling by appointments. She is also a freelance food and nutrition writer for newspapers and magazines, as well as a public speaker. Thank you, Mary-Jo, for joining us today, and I will now turn the show over to you.
Thank you, Sharnese, and thank you all for joining me today during your lunchtime to learn more about plant-based diets. Let's start out with getting to have a better idea of what we're going to talk about now. I'm going to start off by talking about the health benefits of plant-based diets. Then I'm going to review 3 eating styles that can help you incorporate more plants into your meals and snacks, like the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, and also different vegetarian diet plans. And then again, how you can add these foods into your current eating style. So let's start off with the benefits of plant-based foods. We all know that fruits and vegetables are good for us, but let's talk about why. So when you increase your amounts of whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, you increase your fiber intake. And when you're doing that, if you're trying to lose weight, the fiber can help you feel fuller. That may help you eat less. Also, if you're trying to reduce your cholesterol, high fiber foods can help too. They're especially beneficial if you replace some of the other foods that you're eating, like the high fat and high calorie ones, like fried foods, large portions of fatty meats, rich desserts, and those snack chips. But let's turn our attention to all these beautiful color fruits and vegetables. They have beautiful plant pigments, and another name for that is called phytochemicals. And phytochemicals are antioxidants, and they work to help your body reduce the inflation in your body. And this is what helps promote health and also reduce health risks. Now, there are lots of different phytochemicals. One you may have heard of is beta carotene. And I think when people hear that, they may automatically think about carrots. And the beta carotene is responsible for the beautiful orangey yellow pigment in many of the fruits and vegetables. And that particular antioxidant is associated with protecting health, especially of the eyes. Now, you'll find beta carotene in other plants and fruits and vegetables, but they may not have that bright color. You'll see eggplant that has a different pigment that promotes that purple color, but that doesn't mean there aren't other colorful antioxidants hiding in the background. So that's why it's really, really important to eat the rainbow of colors when it comes to fruit and vegetables. Let's talk about some meal styles that helps improve health that are plant-based. First of all, the Mediterranean diet, it's been around for a while. Back in the 1960s, it was discovered that individuals that lived in the Greek Isle and around the Mediterranean Sea had very low heart disease risk, and they were assumed it had to do with the eating style and the lifestyle. Well, fast forward a couple of years, and they're seeing more incidence in heart disease because some people are now eating a more Western diet, especially like Americans' diet. So by picking up our food habits, their heart disease rate has increased as well. So let's see what we can do to help with that. Let's go back to the Mediterranean diet. And at the bottom, you'll see a website that has this nice pyramid on it. So if you want this copy, or if you want to look more about the Mediterranean diet, just go to that website. It's also on the next slide. So if you see the Mediterranean diet period, it's very different than the one we're familiar with. Meats and sweets are at the top of the pyramid, not because that's most important, that's because we want to eat less of that on the Mediterranean diet. As we move down the pyramid, you will see eggs, poultry, cheese, and then further down, that's when you see the fish and the seafood, until you finally get to the bottom here, which is where the plant-based diet is focused. Let's take a closer look at that. So one thing I noticed immediately with this picture is all the beautiful colors. So remember, those are those nice plant pigments for good health. And so you're going to have fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Then there's also a focus on getting more beans, nuts, and legumes to serve as a protein source. And then, of course, it's encouraging more herbs and spices and olive oil to cook and season your foods instead of relying on a lot of fat or a lot of salt, and still have a wonderful tasting diet. Now, one thing the Mediterranean diet doesn't do is it doesn't tell you exactly how to eat. It's more focusing on shifting away from some of maybe our typical American habits, the higher fat, the lack of plant-based foods, and adapting a lifestyle over time. Let's move on to the DASH diet, and that gives us more detail. So now you know what DASH stands for. It's the dietary approach to stop hypertension. And the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, and that's a mouthful to say, that's the entity that did research on this particular eating style. And they saw great results of reducing blood pressure and also the LDL cholesterol, or the bad cholesterol. And so they did that by focusing more on, you guessed it, the plant-based foods. So it's more about adding these foods into your diet, the whole grains, the vegetables, and the fruits, instead of some of our typical meat-heavy or fried foods. So at the bottom here is the website, and this is a very long PDF, but it's full of very helpful information. It goes into more detail of what I'm talking about today. It also has some recipes and some menus. The website's also on the next page. Okay, you're wide awake now because this is such a colorful slide, and it does a great job of summarizing the DASH diet, but it's a little much. It's telling you all about the different food groups. So I'm going to focus on the plant-based ones. So the first one over here, it says we should have 6 to 8 servings of whole grains daily. Wow, that seems like a large number, but this is based on a specific person's calorie needs. So for our purposes today, we'll just talk about the 6 servings. And then it's 4 to 5 servings of vegetables recommended daily, and the same as for fruit, 4 to 5 servings. So again, if you look up DASH and you don't get this website, just look for the one that has the National Heart and Lung Institute. Let's talk about now how we can specifically add these foods into our diet. So don't be intimidated by the 6 servings of whole grains. Let's look at what a serving counts as. So a serving of whole grain bread is 1 slice. So if you have a sandwich and had 2 slices of bread, you're already off to a good start. You also can have whole grain cereal, and that portion varies based on the amount of whole grains in the cereal. So it may vary from 1/4 cup to 1 1/4 cups. So you need to read the label about that, but I'm pretty sure Frosted Flakes is not a whole grain, while the bran flakes would be. And then finally, everyone's favorite foods like the cooked cereal, the rice, or the pasta. So let's see how we can get some more of these whole grains into our meals. So breakfast is a pretty good place to start. It's easy. The food industry has a lot of different breakfast products that you can add in. And as I've mentioned, you can use whole grain breads for sandwiches. But since it's summertime, I know pasta salads are very popular. So this is a picture of a pasta salad I've made in the past. And it's made with whole grain penne pasta. And when you look at it straight out of the box, it's a darker tan, and some may even be darker than that. But when you cook them, it lightens up in color. So it doesn't look that different, because people look at food, and sometimes if it looks a little different, they might not try it. But you can see it looks very nice in there. So think about adding a whole grain pasta to your next pasta salad, and they come in all different shapes. Same thing goes for spaghetti. Instead of using the regular white pasta, try some of the whole grains or the whole wheat pasta. Now, this is where you can really get some of those servings in. So here it says a half a cup of rice or pasta. So I will just tell you that if you don't have your measuring cups handy, a half a cup is about a handful. So look at your hand and say, that's your half cup serving. I'm pretty sure most people don't only have a half a cup of spaghetti. I've been told some people have 3 cups of the spaghetti noodles. So that's your whole grain requirement for the whole day. But I'm not suggesting you do it all at one meal, because if you're concerned about weight control, portions are important as well. Also, think about switching from the white pastas to the darker pastas, the rice, whole grain breads, and cereals. But I want to touch on some of those snacks. I absolutely love popcorn, and it is considered a whole grain. But I do not count movie popcorn, just covered in butter and extra salt, as a healthy whole grain. That's just one of those foods. So if you want to count whole grain popcorn as a good snack, make sure it doesn't have all the extras. And there are a lot of really good light popcorns out there. Also consider whole grain crackers and maybe some whole grain cereals for a snack at night. All right, the next group I'm going to talk about is vegetables. And I hear people tell me all the time that they really like vegetables, but they admit they're a little bit lazy. And sometimes I know I'm tired and it's like, I want to cook a vegetable. Or people tell me they don't like vegetables. So hopefully we can find something that people will enjoy. So look at how we can get in 4 servings daily. So 1 cup of raw leafy vegetables is a serving. And many people enjoy those bag salads, and they have more than 1 cup in them. So that's an easy way to get started. And then with your cooked or raw vegetables, that half cup serving counts as 1 serving, whether it's cooked or raw. And then also, some people enjoy vegetable juice. Now, this is a picture I took of a bunch of beautiful cut up vegetables that would go into a salad. So you could do that and get it over at once, and then enjoy it the rest of the week mixed in with your other salads. Let's see some other ways we can add vegetables in. So breakfast might be a little bit different, but a lot of people tell me they enjoy adding vegetables to their omelets. And that's always a good place. You can drink tomato juice or V8 juice, and you can also get those in a lower sodium version. We can get a little more creative with our lunch. I know a lot of us were brought up on iceberg lettuce that really doesn't have a lot of nutrition. So try spinach or some other type of leafy green on your salad. Have a tossed salad. If you're chopping up veggies, have some ready for dips. Now, here's an idea you might think is kind of odd. You know, it's been pretty hot around here lately, so I don't know many of us that want to have a soup for lunch. But there are some chilled vegetable soups. And if you'll go to the VCU Health Facebook page, there's a recipe posted for gazpacho. And that's a chilled soup recipe that originated in Spain, and it's a tomato base, and it's got a lot of wonderful vegetables that you can blend completely for a smooth soup, or you can leave some for the chunky texture. So try some chilled soups. Also at dinner, if you're grilling some meats Add some veggies on the grill. And what you can do is you can get a heavy duty aluminum foil and put that on top of the grill where you want to cook your vegetables. And then use some non-stick cooking spray to keep the vegetables from sticking. And you can grill a bunch like that and have them left over for other meals as well. Also, be a little more creative with your dips. I know ranch is the #1 favorite dip, but you could always dip it in hummus. And some people like celery with their peanut butter. So think of some ways you can sneak those veggies in. Now let's talk about the seasonal fruits. This is probably the easiest way to get some more produce in your diet. We're all excited when the fresh fruit comes in. So let's look and see what a serving is. A serving is considered a median fruit. So if you have a medium-sized apple, that's 1 serving, or even a small one. But if I've seen some pretty giant ones at the store, so some of those really large ones actually are going to count as 2 servings. Then you want to be careful when you use the dried fruit. Its serving size is only 1/4 of a cup. When the fruit is dried, it really concentrates the calories. So that's why the portion is small. Then use any other kind of fruit, fresh, frozen, or even canned. Now, canned fruit tends to get a bad rap, but generally a lot of them now are packaged in juice, so they don't have all that sugary syrup they used to have. And I don't know about you all, when I was going grocery shopping early in the time of the quarantine, I couldn't always find the fresh produce I wanted, so I was able to get some canned versions, and that helped me get my produce in. Also, I want to talk about fruit juice. 1/2 cup is a serving of juice, and that is 4 ounces. Now, I encourage you to get more fruit from actual solid pieces of fruit because juices do not have any fiber, and also they're full of calories. Actually, ounce for ounce, juice has the same number of calories as soda. So if you drink a big 16-ounce cup of juice, you might as well have had soda in terms of calories. So eat your fruit instead of drinking it. So let's look over here about ways you can add fruit in. Again, breakfast is pretty easy. Fruit goes well with that. When you put fruit in a smoothie, even though you're blending it up and it becomes more of a liquid, it still has fiber, so that's a good option. Fruit is nature's fast food. There are so many you can just pick up and go with. Try fruit salads since we're having more fruits available. Now, right now, it may not be as popular to have cooked fruit, but I know in the winter, a lot of people like cooked apples or berries. Again, fruit salad. Here's an idea that I made last July 4th for us fruit salsa. And so the red, it's a little bit hard to see. Those were diced strawberries. The white part was an apple I used a red peel apple. And then the blue, of course, was blueberries. And it had a light sauce on it. And it was just really, really tasty. So there's some creative ways you can use your fruits. And you can also make your own trail mix. Again, remember that dried fruit has a lot of calories, and so do nuts. So that doesn't mean you could eat a large amount of them. A good serving size is about 1/4 to 1/2 cup. All right. So we've talked about different types of fruits and vegetables, but we also want to just take one quick look about how we prepare them. Because if we have a healthy food and we just fry everything or we load it up with salt, that doesn't make it as healthy. So here's some ways you can eat some plant-based foods without using a lot of salt or sodium. So limit your added salt, use fresh or dried herbs and spices, use plenty of fresh or frozen vegetables, and you can even use canned vegetables. I know they get a bad rap because of the sodium, but if you pour them out and drain them and rinse them, that can reduce the sodium by 40%. And again, canned vegetables were really helpful during the early stages of the quarantine. You also want to be careful about the prepackaged foods or some of the processed foods. Again, that kind of reminds me of the different vegetable mixes that come with extra flavorings, maybe a cheese sauce. You're adding a lot of sodium there. All right, so one type of eating style I think most of us are familiar with are vegetarian eating styles. I just want to get us on the same page about what vegetarian eating is. It's generally avoiding animal products or foods made with animals. There should also be an emphasis on an intake of whole grains, dried beans and peas, nuts, and fruits and vegetables. Let me tell you what they're not. I've had a number of people tell me that they are vegetarian. So I always need to ask more information so I understand what they're meaning. And so sometimes when people say that, it may mean they just don't eat red meat. That's what vegetarian means to them. Or it might mean they cut out all the meat products, but they're not eating any produce and they're filling up on, you guessed, fruit juices, fatty and sugary desserts, potatoes, especially French fries, fettuccine alfredo, a lot of cheese pizza. So when eating a plant-based diet, we want to remember that food quality counts. So let's quickly review some of the vegetarian eating styles. So one is lacto-vegetarian. It exists as a vegetarian that avoids meat products but does include the milk, cheese, and yogurt. Then there's ovo-vegetarian that doesn't include any meat or animal products except eggs and egg products. Okay. Then you've got the combo of the lacto-ovo-vegetarian, which includes the dairy and egg products. So that's just several versions of vegetarian eating styles. Sometimes people are pescatarian, which means they avoid all animal products, except they do eat seafood and shellfish. And I've had other people that may be a lacto-pescatarian or a lacto-ovo-pescatarian, which means they pretty much are just avoiding red meat. So as you can see, there are different vegetarian eating styles. Let me just tell you about vegan. Okay, and vegans avoid all animal products and any foods made from animal products. And you may be surprised at some of these, like honey made by bees, margarine made with milk, desserts made with eggs and milk. And sometimes it'll sneak in when and you may be very surprised. Like there are some refried beans that are made with lard. So those are the vegetarian eating styles that you'll see more often. Now, one nutrient I get concerned about when someone is vegetarian is, well, first, how are they going to decide to try these foods? And they need to be more aware about what they're eating. So the person that does eliminate a lot of foods needs to know where they're going to get their protein from. So I'm just going to take us back to high school for a little bit, high school biology. Anybody went into home ec or my nutrition class? Let's talk about protein, just to get us all on the same page. So protein is made up of amino acids, and they play a huge role in our body. You can see all these benefits. It really helps the growth of our connective tissues, our muscles, and our skin. And protein is very important for muscle tone and strength. Protein also helps heal our bodies, helps with digestion, and gives us energy. So just remember, protein, especially the amino acids, they're the building blocks of our bodies. So a little bit more about amino acids. We need 20 amino acids, but our bodies only make 11. So the other 9 that we need for good health, and they're called the essential amino acids, we need to get them from animal products, animal proteins. But wait, I'm talking about plant-based diet. Well, let's see what we can do about that. All right, so plant-based foods do not have all of the essential amino acids like animal products do. But remember all those beautiful colors for the produce? and how they had different amounts of those wonderful plant pigments and phytochemicals for health. The same thing. By combining different types of plant-based foods through the day, you can pick up enough of the amino acids to get all essential acids. So maybe eating animal products does give us all the essential amino acids really easily, but you can get them from plant-based foods too. Let's talk about some good sources of plant-based protein. So this is starting from the highest to the lowest. And the first one is tempeh. And you may not be familiar with that. That is another soy food, sort of like tofu. And then we have soybeans and lentils and beans. So this is a picture I took of a 3-bean chili I made before I put the sauce on it so you could see all the vegetables. But we've got pinto beans and kidney beans and black beans. And so something like that is really easy to make. You can either find vegetarian beans, tofu, again, even though it's a soy product, it's a little bit lower on the list of protein than tempeh, but it's still a good one. Then we have textured vegetable protein, which is in a lot of the imitation meat products. And then you have a bagel. Remember, some of the whole grains are good sources of protein as well. And then we continue over here with more. Again, they're following after the bagel. You may be surprised that veggie burgers and hot dogs are not higher on the list. And it's because it depends on what they're made of. So if you have a veggie burger made from, say, black beans, that's going to be pretty high in protein. But if you're going to have one that's made more of mushrooms, it's not going to have that much protein. And I'm going to jump on down here. Quinoa is a seed that's used as a grain, and it's a great substitute for maybe rice. Of course, we've got our nuts and nut butters. I want to point out soy milk has the same amount of protein as cow's milk, 8 grams per cup. But I need to point out that most of the other plant-based milk products are not good sources of protein at all. So don't rely on those for your protein, and be sure to read your label. But they're still good products because they're excellent sources of calcium and vitamin D. And then you can see a lot of other foods on here. And then we hit 2 vegetables, spinach and broccoli. So we can combine these together to get all those essential amino acids. Let's look at some protein combos. So look, these are some very familiar ones you're probably already doing. Macaroni and cheese, rice and beans, peanut butter and whole grain bread. And then there's some you may not have tried, like falafel, and that's this right here. That is mashed chickpeas, and they're often shaped into balls or patties, and they can be fried or grilled. Then there's whole grain cereal and soy milk, yogurt, dairy or either soy with nuts and seeds. And then things like tofu with some rice or quinoa, hummus and whole wheat pita, and lentil soup with a whole grain roll. Now, when I was growing up, we didn't eat lentils, we did more beans. But what's nice about lentils is even though they're dried, you don't need to soak them. You can just stick them in your recipe and they're good to go. They're ready to cook. So I've talked about a lot of things with a plant-based diet, but I've got 2 recipes that you can try out to see if you want to follow a plant-based diet. And both these recipes are posted on the VCU Health Facebook page. So the first one is teriyaki tempeh with broccoli. And so the best way to describe the look of the tempeh, it's larger than a smartphone, but not quite as big as an iPad. So you'll find them in flat packages in, a rectangle shape. And then if you look closely, you can see there's little squiggles in here, and that's just the actual soybeans. And it's much more dense and sturdy than tofu. So it stir fries very, very quickly and very easy. And this particular recipe, I had put it on top of cauliflower rice but you could use whole grain rice, brown rice, or you could use quinoa. So a lot of people have heard about quinoa, but they may not have tried it yet. And I didn't get a picture of the sauteed vegetables, but I did get a close-up of what the quinoa looks like after it is cooked. Now, as I said, it starts out as a little tiny seed, but then it swells up and gets softer. And I tell you, it makes a lot. And I also discovered that it freezes well. So if you don't use it all, you can freeze it. There's also different kinds of quinoa. There's a red one and there's a black one. And sometimes you can find them mixed as a tricolor quinoa. And what's neat about that is they have different textures. So the white quinoa is soft, the red is a bit chewy, and the black is a little bit crunchy. So that gives you a lot of nice textures. So these are just some ideas to get you started. You may already be following a plant-based diet. You may be looking to start eating more plant-based foods. You may start out with a meatless Mondays. You may start out with being a part-time vegetarian or having one meal a day or one day a week as a vegetarian. So I hope I've given you some good things to think about. And now I think we have some time left to do some questions if you have them for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary-Jo. So as Mary-Jo mentioned, we will be opening the floor for any questions. So we will read any questions in the comments section, along with a few questions that were submitted in advance. So one of the questions that were submitted was, how would you suggest sneaking veggies into kids' meals?
Oh, that's a tough one. I will tell you that was rough with both my sons. I think sometimes vegetables have a different taste, and sometimes their little taste buds are just not really excited about them. And I think you can offer them and have them observe you eating them. Maybe starting out with the ones that don't taste so strong, like green beans, peas, or carrots. And I think the more they see them, they will be more likely to eat them. That doesn't mean they'll do it overnight. In fact, my youngest son, who's a young adult, he was a picky eater. And I remember one time in a restaurant, he asked me, I wonder when I'm going to start eating salads. And it's any time now. Well, he's a vegetarian now.
Oh, wow.
So he does eat meat one day a week, but usually just vegetarian.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And our next question is, will eating a predominantly plant-based diet cause bloating and gas?
Now, that's a good question. And if it does, it's likely coming from all the fiber that you've increased. So whenever you start increasing your fiber, you need to make sure you have plenty of liquid with that. And I wouldn't start eating like a low fiber diet one day and then start getting those 6 servings of whole grains and all those fruits and vegetables, because you are going to notice some gas and bloating most likely. So start out slowly so your body can get used to it.
Okay, that's good advice. And then, can following any of the mentioned diets be expensive? And what are your suggestions to make sure that the following any of these diets are affordable?
Now, I really appreciate that question because I hear all the time, well, I can't follow a diet, it's too expensive. And it really and truly is based on the products that you purchase. For example, a lot of people will start following a vegetarian diet and they'll spend a lot of money on like the imitation chicken patties or the black bean burgers, and buying a lot of those can get very expensive.
Right.
Also, there are a lot of specialty products. So, I mean, just looking at the slide in front of us, getting more fruits and vegetables in your diet doesn't have to be expensive. You can buy produce on sale. Take advantage of the farmers markets right now. I use a lot of frozen vegetables, and I will buy canned vegetables. One thing nice about both of those, and a lot of people don't realize, is when they are picked and harvested, they are immediately taken care of. They become frozen vegetables and they become canned vegetables. They're not sitting around for weeks. And so they still have a lot of nutrition. So that is one way that can help. You don't have to spend a lot of money.
That's good to know. And another question, do you have any recommendations for people that need to be gluten-free? And what are your thoughts on items such as chickpea pasta?
So that's two separate items, and sometimes they collide. Now, with the chickpea pasta, that is definitely a whole grain. It doesn't mean that it's gluten-free. And so anyone that wants to be vegetarian and gluten-free, you really have to read the labels. A lot of the imitation meat products, they're going to have flour or some type of gluten in it. So you really have to read labels. I would encourage you, and of course, got to stick a plug in here, to see a registered dietitian to work one-on-one with them. Or if you have some questions afterward, if you can contact me, I can tell you a good website to check out. So it's all about reading labels.
Yeah, definitely. And then another question we have, are there suggestions on what to avoid for autoimmune disease? They've heard of nightshade.
Okay, so with the autoimmune disease, especially if someone has inflammation, they have studied the Mediterranean diet, and that has helped reduce inflammation. And I know there's always been some talk about nightshades, but those are vegetables like, say, eggplant. And it doesn't affect everyone. I think that's one of those foods that's pretty much an individual. So definitely eating more fruits and vegetables and whole grains can help with autoimmune and especially in the inflammation area. Won't cure them, but it may help.
Right. Okay. And another question is, how would you incorporate B12 in the plant-based meal approach other than nutritional yeast?
Oh, that's a toughie. So nutritional yeast is pretty much the best way to get that in. And you do have to be careful sometimes because we're not sure if it's got a high amount in it. Unfortunately, it looks like you could possibly need a B12 supplement. But before you go out and purchase that, it's always good to just have your labs checked to see if you do need the extra B12.
It's good to know. And our last question, are raw vegetables hard on your digestive system? And what's the ideal way to cook veggies to keep at the nutritional?
So the raw veggies, that goes back to just having a higher fiber content on your diet. So it may be easier to start out with cooked vegetables. It all goes back to the amount that you have and also the frequency. So there are so many different ways to cook vegetables. And I just encourage people to find the way that they enjoy and that's quickest if that's what they need. So nothing easier than throwing a bag of microwave vegetables in the microwave, or either taking them out and putting them in a glass container and cooking them. I think grilling is really popular. Also, you can stir fry them, especially in the warmer months. If you don't want to heat up your kitchen in the summer, is cooking some of the root vegetables like carrots and potatoes and throwing in some onions. The main thing is you want to flavor them nicely. So that's when you can use some more seasonings. And I would encourage you to search the internet. There's a lot of good websites that talk about which herb goes best with vegetable. So it's all what you like.
Yeah, that all sounds delicious. Well, Mary-Jo, it was such a pleasure to have you join us for this educational webinar. It was very informative, and I'm sure everyone is so excited to explore the recipes and the plant-based eating styles that you've mentioned today.
Okay.
So check out VCU Health's Facebook to explore recently shared recipes, and we will also include a link to the 2 recipes that Mary-Jo mentioned in the comments. To learn more about VCU Health's nutritional services, please visit vcuhealth.org. Once again, thank you, Mary-Jo.
Thank you.
And to all who joined today, have a great day.
All right.